Impeachment is the second choice, Democrats say, for them. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi says impeachment could be avoided if the 25th Amendment is invoked. The amendment was adopted after President Kennedy was assassinated and is meant to remove a president who is physically incapacitated. So how specifically could the 25th Amendment be used to remove President Trump? I want to bring in CNN senior legal analyst Laura Coates, who is joining me with some answers. And I know this might be a bit of an academic conversation because at this point, it seems the vice president is completely reticent to proceed in this manner. But what would need to happen in order to invoke the 25th Amendment?
Well, it provides for two vehicles. Number one, the vice president could talk with a majority of the members of his cabinet of the president of the United States, and they could decide together to invoke the 25th Amendment. Or the second avenue that was available is that the vice president could, along with a congressional body, a committee of some sort, could actually work together. Now, the problem is that that congressional body was never actually formed. In fact, Congressman Raskin a few years ago, and as recently as last October, tried to create that very mechanism, that very committee that would be called for the 25th Amendment to say, look, you can bypass the cabinet and go to an independent, nonpartisan group of people, which includes medical professionals perhaps and others, to suggest and confirm whether the president indeed has capacity. Now, why would you want that angle as opposed to the cabinet? Well, because the cabinet, of course, Brianna, serves at the pleasure of the president of the United States, and therefore the loyalty issue might sometimes cloud the judgment, as many think is happening right now with Vice President Pence.
Well, certainly. And the 25th Amendment is not the only amendment that could be used against President Trump. The 14th Amendment is cited in the article. And in essence, it says that no federal officer, quote, shall have engaged in insurrection or rebellion against the same or given aid or comfort to the enemies thereof. So what is the process in order to use the 14th Amendment?
Well, a little bit of the history. This was actually coming about after the Civil War, trying to have a way to prevent those who were Confederates able to join the actual Congress of the United States. The rebellion, the insurrection was the Civil War. And of course, the enemies we're speaking about was the Confederate members who tried to divide the United States of America. Here we have a little bit of a different quandary here. You don't have the official declaration of these insurrectionists whose behavior, which certainly is antithetical and violent to the premise of our democracy, have not been officially declared enemies. That might not be the requirement because, of course, this is a prospective punishment. It's saying this person, whoever has engaged this behavior, whether it's the president or anyone else, cannot prospectively hold office and should not have it now. There's a time constraint right now because the president is only in office for what, a matter of a little bit more than a week. So this is a way of having that symbolic censure, the ability to say, look, you cannot have the pleasure, have the right, have the privilege of being able to represent the United States of America if you have tried to undermine it, and in this case, fatally.
Finally, there's a Republican Senator Pat Toomey who says that President Trump has criminal liability for the insurrection. You say that criminally prosecuting Trump would be tougher because he has the defense of the First Amendment. Explain that.
Well, he could. Remember, in order to actually prove that somebody has incited a riot, you have to first show that it's not protected speech, meaning that not the run-of-the-mill political speech that says, I disagree with somebody else or trying to advocate for one's belief. You have to actually incite. You have to do so in a way that you intended for what to happen, that it had to be talking about a moment in time that was definitive, not some moment in the future someday, and it had to be said in a way that violence was likely to occur and in that environment. Now here you've got those three sort of criteria, those elements that may have been met, but not only the president's own words, but others who spoke that day, including the likes of his own son, talking about we're coming for you, Rudy Giuliani, democracy by combat, and of course also Congressman Mo Brooks about kicking ass, so to speak. And so you might have met those criteria, but it's still an intentional, hard case to prove because we want, as a country, to have free speech.